Hey guys, a new video for last Epoch. In this video we're going to go over my Frostbite Runemaster build that I've been playing recently and having a blast with. This build is pretty cool because, well, first of all, the damage output is pretty insane. Right now my Frostbite damage in my character sheet is like 4,000 damage per Frostbite stack, and we're getting over 1,000 Frostbite stacks. So pretty insane damage output on this character. Clear wise, it's also very good because we're using static orb, and a lot of the things we do are all automated. We're proccing our ice barrage with Frostclaw, and our static orb, well, we have it linked to cast with flame rush. So basically you can just flame rush around the map and then just cast Frostclaw, and then everything kind of happens. Okay, so that's sort of the idea of the build. You just Frostclaw, everything kind of blows up, and static orb helps take care of some of the clear. Alright, so let's do a little bit of gameplay. We're going to run a quick little monolith over here and do some bosses so you guys can see the gameplay and that kind of stuff. There's a couple of things to note about the skills we're using, because there is sort of two ways to play this build. First one is if you're just lazy. Well, if you're lazy, all you do is just flame rush Frostclaw and don't even worry about pushing static orb. But if you do want to have, optimal gameplay or, better clear, what I like to do is I like to pop static orb every 2 to 3 seconds. Or because the orb itself lasts for about 2 or 3 seconds, right? And the more you have, the more orbs you have, the better your clear is going to be. So I have mine set up so I can have 3 orbs, right? So I push my static orb 2 times, and then I'll do a flame rush, and then you can see that the clear is actually a lot nicer that way. Okay, so you can see that there is some times where I'm actually going to be running out of mana, but this is not really a problem because, Frostclaw is actually costing 0 mana. So Frostclaw on 0 mana, so that means that even if we're out of mana, we can still cast it. It's not really a problem. So that's kind of nice. Alright, density isn't really that great in this map, but see, clear wise, it is pretty nice. It's not like, spark charge levels of clear, but I think this does have a bit more single target than those kind of builds, and it's kind of the price you pay, I guess, right? Also, I guess because we are a dot build, so it's not really gonna be the biggest clear, right? Alright, and that's it. Pretty quick. Let's go do a boss over here. Let's build up a little bit of energy shield, or energy shield ward. And I keep forgetting that flame rush doesn't really work in this area, but you can see, it's only 300 corruption, right? But he's getting pretty chunked. Alright, so let's go do a shade. Let's see what a shade looks like. And hopefully it's not like the poison one, because I really don't like him. But yeah, shade's pretty easy. Up till now, just been able to sort of face tank most of his stuff. You can see he's already at half health. Alright, pretty easy. So, quick overview about the build. So, we have Frostclaw over here, and our Frostclaw is set to auto-cast this Ice Barrage, or it has a 10% chance when you cast it. And you can see, as we're casting, we have gotten our Ice Barrage. So, that's kind of a nice quality of life thing with the Frostclaw, because we don't actually have to have Ice Barrage on our bar to cast it. It's pretty much always going to be auto-cast, pretty much instantly. You have it up I don't know, 80% of the time, so that's kind of nice. Another thing we are also doing is we're getting lightning aegis with our static orb, and then we're using a lot of these cast speed. Well, you have lightning aegis idols to get quite a lot of cast speed. See, right now I don't have cast speed on my gloves or my twisted heart, so I'm missing about 60% increased cast speed. But as it is, you see, if we do all of our stuff, we are getting up to about like 230-ish cast speed after we teleport, maybe 200, 230, something like that. So getting a lot of cast speed, getting some Frostbite chance. We're also using the Frostbite shackles because, I guess, well, for the Frostbite hit, it's nice. And then also the freeze rate multiplier is nice. And we get the ward retention per 1% uncapped cold resistance. So we are cold resistance stacking again. Basically, this gives us a bunch of ward retention. You see I'm at 915 ward retention. Without the gloves, I go all the way down to about 350. Then we're also using the Snowdrift boots. So these give us cold penetration with Frostbite per 10% freeze rate multiplier. You see, I have about 2,100 freeze rate multiplier, so that is pretty insane for getting your Frostbite penetration. And then we are also in Ice Barrage. We're taking this Frost Armor node here, so whenever we use our Ice Barrage, we get this shield. Let's just put it on our bar for a second. We get a Frost Shield, which reduces cold damage taken, it blocks projectiles, and then gives us 60% more global cold damage. So if we take a look here, our Frostbite damage per Frostbite is about 2,400. When we use our Ice Barrage, it goes all the way up to about 4,000. Let's go over some of the items that are required for the build. Like, there is only one item that you actually need or the build will not function, and it is the -5 spell mana cost. And basically, because it's a -5 roll, our Frostclaw is 0 mana, so this won't work with a -4 or a -3. You can see if I use -3, our Frostclaw is costing 4 mana. Now we can actually still sort of play the build, but you're going to see that when we start going and all this, we start proccing a lot of stuff, we're actually going to run out of mana. And because our Frostclaw is costing 0 mana with the -5, we can still continue to actually cast, and it doesn't really matter if you actually, just drain all of your mana, because you just push Frostclaw a couple of times and then you're back up to full mana. And it won't work with a -4 either. It's going to be 2 mana cost, so you do absolutely need this -5. Now you don't really actually need to use a Frozen Ire, you can just use a normal Scepter. After that, the Snowdrift boots, like, there is no real required legendary affixes on any of these items. See, all of mine aren't really optimal. I'm trying to get cast speed on one of these hearts, but I haven't really gotten it yet. Overall, pretty easy build to put together. You don't really need like a +3 Frostclaw on a Twisted Heart for the build to function. Okay, so let's go over the gear. So Frozen Ire, the reason we're using the Scepter is, first of all, it gives a lot of freeze rate multiplier. And then also has a chance to cast this Tundra Nova, which also is a cold hit, and it applies Frostbite, so that's kind of nice. Then I guess, yeah, it is a Scepter, so we can get the -5 spell mana cost mod on the Scepter. Yeah, so you need a T7 spell damage and spell mana cost mod on there, and then after that, ideally cast speed and then freeze rate multiplier is going to be the other mods you want. Like if you get a 3 LP, like this one, I made this when I was trying out the build, so I went for the T7 freeze rate multiplier, and then I realized, well, I actually do need a -5. Okay, so that is the weapon. And for the helmet, so we do need some leech, and the only leech I have in the build right now is coming from this helmet. So Tyrant Crown, using this for the elemental leech. We have Frostbite on hit. This is probably the affix that you want exalted. Frostbite on hit, and then either intelligence or cold penetration. You see I have a sealed cold pen. I mean, a T1 cold pen is like, what, 20%, so that's pretty nice value, so I'm just going for that. And then after that you get resistances. Health is nice too, I guess. Basically the stats you're scaling for offense is going to be Frostbite on hit, and then elemental damage over time and freeze rate multiplier. So those three are your offensive stats you can get on your prefixes, pretty much on all of your gear. Then as for suffixes, capping resistance is actually pretty easy on this character. We don't need to worry about our elemental resistance or our necrotic resistance or our void resistance. So the only two resistance you need is physical and poison. So that's pretty much the only ones you're going to need on your gear. So you can see I have some Fizz Res here. Ideally you get the Fizz Res on your chest, or Fizz or Poison on the chest. Just get those two, and the rest of your suffixes are going to be all cold resistance. So cold resistance or all resistance. Like this one here, cold resistance, and then elemental resistance. Something like this is like, what you want. For the amulet, I'm using the freeze rate multiplier and cold resistance amulet. Unfortunately, my implicit is really bad. It's like one of the worst rolls, but this can go up to like 100. So Ideally, you do have a better one than this. Then you do want to get exalted elemental damage over time, preferably. It's going to be a bit more damage increase, but you know, if you can't get that, the freeze rate multiplier is also very nice. And then on your amulet, you do want to get armor shred, because we are converting armor shred to frostbite over here on Runemaster. So it's going to add quite a bit more damage. So get your armor shred on the amulet. Then after that, cold resistance, you know, like we mentioned with the suffixes, basically cap your fizz and poison. And then after that, just everything is cold res or all elemental resistances. Okay, so for the body armor, we are going for a celestial raiment because this has freeze rate multiplier on the implicit. And then I like to go for a +3 at least ice barrage, because the way we have ice barrage set up, it is taking quite a bit of points to actually be able to grab this frost armor node and then have enough points to put points in duration and also get pierce and frostbite chance on pierce. So end up needing the extra 3 points, otherwise you're not going to get this frostbite chance. But I guess it's not really a big deal at the end of the day. If you have only a +2, then you just lose 1 point here, so not really that big of a deal. I guess you could go for a frostbite on hit, T6 or T7. It's, you know, I think that will end up being about the same in terms of like total value. Oh, and if you can, then it's nice to get a sealed tier 1 +1 charge for Flame Ward. So you can see I have +2 Flame Ward charges, but I'm not even spec'd into Flame Ward. So I can have, you know, use my Flame Ward 2 times in a row. That's pretty nice. I think for all mage builds, it's something you definitely want on your body armor as a sealed affix, like huge value. Okay, so for the catalyst, we're going to be using a opulent focus because this gives us a lot of intelligence, which is ward, retention, and then, you know, some other things too. It gives us ward per second, which is nice, and ward retention. So really nice for defensive catalyst. And we're going to go for the T7 attack speed or cast speed. And then ideally you get the elemental damage over time, or like cold damage or something like that. And then cold resistance and freeze rate multiplier on the suffixes. Okay, so for rings, rings are pretty much the same. Like you mentioned, the gearing is all pretty much the same for all of the items, right? You know, you get your elemental damage over time, freeze rate multiplier, anything that is really synergizing with the build, like cold damage, elemental damage, damage over time, freeze rate multiplier. Ideally, the best 2 stats though is going to be elemental damage over time and freeze rate multiplier, or you can go for, you know, elemental damage over time and intelligence for a little bit more ward retention. You know, it's kind of up to you. And as for bases, I'm not really sure exactly. You know, you can, I think there is a lot of flexibility in the ring bases. You could use the opal rings. You could use like some opal rings like this for some more attributes and cooldown recovery, this kind of stuff. Or you could go for silver rings, you know, if you want some more movement speed. You can go for gold rings for more elemental resistance, which is a little bit more ward retention. Or, you know, like the one I'm doing now, which is going to be a little bit of mana and some mana regen, because it is kind of nice to have some mana regen. It helps when you do drop below 0 mana. You see I'm at 14 right now, and it feels pretty good. I did try at like, you know, 20-ish, like 22, and that was actually pretty nice as well. So having a little bit of mana regen is actually kind of nice. So I'm using these 2 rings, and having a bigger mana pool is actually a little bit nice to kind of give you a buffer. So you don't always just, you know, like drop into like negative mana, because you are going to be spending quite a bit of mana with our Static Orbs costing 27, then Ice Barrage costing 45. So, you know, we can burn through this mana pretty quickly, but I mean, not really a big deal at the end of the day. Frost Claw is going to generate enough mana back for you. Okay, so for the belt, poison resistance, cold resistance, implicit base, so it's going to be the Spider Silk Stash, and, or I keep saying stash, but it's a sash, right? Okay, so here is where I got my mana regen. So ideally you have probably 1 mana regen affix, I think. I'm not really sure if it's 100% needed. You could play without it and still probably be fine. You just have to watch out on how many static orbs you cast. Like for me, I like to spam my static orb like quite a bit, because in monoliths and that kind of stuff, having more static orbs really does help your clear. That's why I'm going for some more mana regen to make it feel a little bit more comfortable. But if you don't want to go for the mana regen, then what you do is use something like this with like elemental damage over time, freeze rate multi. You can go for CDR if you want some to make your Flame Rush a little bit faster, or you go for Cold Resistance, Elemental Resistance, like all the other items. All right, so Frostbite Shackles here. Ideally, you get the T7 cast speed, and then probably Armor Shred would be the next best one to get. So, and then for the boots, movement speed, and then you can pretty much get anything else you want. I have intelligence on mine, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think having like movement speed and then the haste mod would be good. We already do get a little bit of frenzy, so I think, yeah, having haste would be nice, because at the moment there is no source of haste in the build. Okay, so Twisted Heart, cast speed is the one modifier you want on here. Anything else is just kind of a bonus. You know, if you have a 2 LP, you can go for cast speed and then freeze rate multi or elemental damage over time, you know, like you mentioned with the offensive and defensive stats. Okay, so for idols, we're going cast speed with lightning aegis and cold resistance. You can alternatively use some of these cast speed with lightning aegis and chance to gain lightning aegis when hit idols if you want. And the reason you want to do this is, well, because lightning aegis, so the way lightning aegis works is, so we get it with our static orb basically, and then we lose lightning aegis after you know, the duration expires, or if we lose 25% of our health. This doesn't actually count for Twisted Heart, so you can, you know, don't have to worry about Twisted Heart taking your lightning aegis. But if you are getting hit in a monolith, right, by a monster that does a big hit to you, well, you're gonna lose your lightning aegis. This also applies to dots. So if you're standing in a degen, you can lose your lightning aegis, and then you lose basically pretty much all of your cast speed. So the way I get around this is, well, first of all, on our flame rush, we have it cast static orb, so we get it every time we flame rush, we get our lightning aegis. And then while I'm in monoliths, I'm actually just casting my static orb and frost claws. So I'll just alternate, right? So I'm doing frost claws, and then I'll just push my static orb, and then, you know, kind of every now and then like this. And that's kind of how I'm doing it, so I'm able to maintain my lightning aegis. But if you are kind of lazy, then you can just go for all of these idols, so you get chance to gain lightning aegis when hit. You can also get it on the big idols. I actually went and bought all of these, cost quite a lot of money. But you can get this whole set. You'll lose quite a bit of cold resistance, which means you're going to be losing ward retention. You'll probably be at about like sub 800, like 750-ish maybe. So you lose some ward retention, but you get some quality of life. So whenever you're hit, basically you'll have like over a 30% chance to gain lightning aegis. So that might be kind of nice if you don't really have to want to worry about buff maintenance. And okay, so let's go over the blessings. So Black Sun, Void Resistance, there isn't really much to get here. I mean, there is some like leech stuff here that, you know, seems a little bit cool, but I think overall just getting your Void Resistance here is going to open up another suffix slot on your gear for cold resistance or health or something like that. Okay, Ending the Storm, the freeze rate multiplier, we get this blessing here. Reign of Dragons, we get the all resistance. This is why we're able to cap our void resistance and our like elemental and fizz resistance pretty easily, is because we get this blessing, then we just add one more affix somewhere for fizz and we're capped. Okay, Frostbite on hit from the Age of Winter, and Spirits of Fire is going to be flat armor. So that is all of the blessings. Let's go over some of the skills. Okay, so let's start off with Frostclaw. So Frostclaw, the purpose of Frostclaw is, well, first of all, it does quite a lot of damage. Just on its own, Frostclaw is applying like 600, 700 stacks of Frostbite, which is pretty insane. So that's kind of nice. First of all, what we need to do is we need to get Frostclaw to 0 mana. So what we do is, first of all, we're going to come over to Gift of Winter to get the mana cost. And then we're going to come over here to get even more reduced mana cost over here. And this basically is all you need. After that, we're going to come down over here to Volley of Glass, so all the projectiles can hit the same target. And then after that, we go for the Power Word Hail. So this one, you can only have, you could put 1 point in here to have a 5% chance, and that's still going to be pretty big uptime. And I have it at 10%, but the problem with this is that, you know, it's RNG, right? Sometimes you'll proc it like 5 times in a row in like the first 5 casts. It'll proc it like, you know, 3 or 4 times, and then just like your mana's gonna go boop and it's gonna go. But, you know, it doesn't really impact gameplay that much, because all you have to do pretty much is just keep casting Frostclaw and you are going to regenerate your mana. So the only problem is if you're out of mana, you can't Flame Rush or Flame Ward. So that's something to keep in mind. If you find that you're out of mana too much, then, you know, what you can do is either hold off on casting static orbs, or get some more mana regen on your gear, or actually just take out 1 point of here from here and only keep it at a 5% chance, and that'll still be very big, very high uptime. Okay, so after that we go for this node here. So it's basically this, whenever we have a active Ice Barrage, if we cast Frostclaw, it's going to increase the fire rate of this guy like by quite a bit, which is pretty big for extra damage. And lastly, we're going to come down here. So this one is actually pretty important because, so when you cast Frostclaw, you gain ward based on its freeze rate multiplier. Basically, since we're stacking freeze rate multiplier already for the Snowdrift boots, we end up with quite a lot of freeze rate multiplier and then get quite a lot of ward every time we are casting our Frostclaw, which is pretty cool. Okay, then after that, the remaining points we put into over here for some Frostbite chance and increase ailment duration, which is pretty big for damage. And so let's go over to Ice Barrage next. So this guy here, first thing we're doing is we're coming and getting the Ice Shield, and we're also getting the Frost Armor here, basically everything here. And then we want to extend the duration because these nodes here reduce the duration. So it's gonna not really have that high of an uptime if you don't have this node here. Then after that here, challenge the elements. So this actually gives it more fire rate against bosses and rare enemies. So it's going to be like a machine gun basically when you're attacking a boss or something like that. Then the last points we have, we're putting it into the pierce chance. It just kind of helps with the clear a little bit. And then remaining points you have is going to be frostbite chance with the piercing projectiles. Okay, static orb. So static orb, first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to come over here and make it orbit us. And I only have 3 points in here because realistically in a monolith, I'm not going to be casting 5 static orbs, right? I'm pretty much only casting like 2 and then I teleport or flame rush, which generates 1 more. So on average, I'm only having about 2 to 3 static orbs around me. And then we're going to go for converting it to cold. And then we need to get the lightning aegis. So we get lightning aegis over here, and then last points into scatter blast for some smaller orbs. Now all these little small orbs are going to be hitting, and they're all going to be applying frostbite. So the more little projectiles and stuff you can make, the better for these kind of builds. And then the last points here, we're going into the shock chance, which gets converted into frostbite chance for their static orbs. So kind of nice. And for flame rush, we just go to the node that makes it cast Runic Invocation whenever we use this, so we don't have to bother casting our Runic Invocation manually. We go over here, we convert to cold, we get our brand. Kind of important because Runemaster does have some talents that are giving more damage to branded enemies and this kind of stuff, so this is the way we're getting it. And then we just get this beta decay node here, which casts static orb when we use our flame rush. And after that, the remaining points is going to be into distance and speed. And then we have our penetration, which gets converted to cold penetration because we're converting to cold. And yeah, this one here, mana efficiency is pretty nice because, we don't really want to spend too much mana on, flame rush and this kind of stuff because we want to save our mana for when we do proc the Ice Barrage and when we're using our static orb. Okay, so Runic Invocation. Basically here we have it set up for immutable order. And the way our order is working is we have our Flame Rush, which is a cold skill. And then we have our non-spect Flame Lord, which is a fire skill. And then we have our Static Orb here, which is a cold skill. So we are able to cast our Frostguard spell. It's a spell of choice. I did try like a lot of different spells. Like I went through the list and tried them all out in some monoliths, but none of them really felt that impactful. End of the day, Frostguard is sort of the way to go. I think it's one of the strongest invocations out there right now you can use. Okay, so since cast speed is sort of the name of the game, we're going for Transcriber of Power. So every time we cast our Runic Invocation, we are getting cast speed. So this also does count when we use our Flame Rush. You can see we have it somewhere here. Yeah, there it is. So we get our cast speed after we use our Flame Rush. So that's kind of nice. So basically, after we use Flame Rush, we're getting Frenzy for 2 seconds. Then we're also getting cast speed from this area here. And we're also getting even more cast speed from our Runemaster passive tree. So after we Flame Rush, we are just casting insanely fast. We're also getting Lightning Aegis, proccing every time we use Flame Rush. So that's kind of nice. Okay, after that, the points don't really matter. You can put the rest of the points wherever you want. I like to have this over here at the very top because it does give you more faster ward generation, or no, rune generation when you are channeling. So Flame Rush is a channeling skill. So basically, if we don't have any runes, we can Flame Rush for quite a long time and actually get our Frost Guard. Whereas if you didn't have that node, you would only be casting like a 2 or 1 node invocation if you don't have any runes at the time. So it is kind of nice. Let's go over some of the passives. So the mage passives are kind of, you know, standard, I'd say, for most ward builds. We get the ward retention, the intelligence, the fire and lightning res, pretty important for capping our fire and lightning res. And then we're going to just go for the cast speed. I'll have a slider in the planner as like how I allocate the points. So if you're wondering about that, you can check out the build planner. In Sorcerer, important points here is the cast speed. And we do need to spend 15 points in here to unlock Ice Barrage, so that's kind of what we're doing. And then the movement speed over here, and then a little bit of cold damage and freeze rate multiplier for some damage. And then in Runemaster, so there's a couple things you can do. So basically what you want to get, first of all, is the cast speed, and then all of the ward stuff, right? The ward generation stuff here, the ward generation stuff here. And then we want to come over to this freezing point here for the reduced damage taken, or I mean for the frostbite chance. And then we're going to go for the more damage to bosses and rares, the cooldown stuff. This brand area here, so it's like you get element penetration with damage over time. The brand doesn't really matter that much. We're not actually using this brand, but it's just to unlock this damage to branded enemies. So we get like 10% more damage, pretty cool. And like we said, we're applying our brand with the Flame Rush. Okay, after that, we're just getting the 7-point bonus in Celestial Doom, so we get some more ward gain versus branded bosses and that kind of stuff. The spell damage doesn't really do anything. Okay, and after that, so I've put about 5 points in here, or this doesn't really matter here, just for some more movement speed and cast speed after traversal. So if you don't really care about this, what I recommend is you go into Mental Catalyst. Alright, so this is basically just for the intelligence for ward retention, and then the bonus damage from crits, or, you know, reduced damage taken from crits. You know, alternatively, if you want more ward, like just pure ward retention, this one over here is pretty nice, Inscribed Instruments, because you get ward retention with the scepter, so a pretty huge value on this. And that sort of is the passive tree. So that's pretty much it, guys. The skills, all that kind of stuff. So far, build is pretty fun, like having a blast playing this. It's very fun to clear monoliths. Single target damage is pretty insane, and clear is pretty good as well. Anyways, if you liked the video, let me know in the comments or Discord. It'd be nice to know how far you guys have taken this build. I'll probably try to keep pushing corruption. You know, I'm still having fun playing this character, so I'll probably easily climb, you know, past 500 on this guy and that kind of stuff. But that'll be it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.